Hello, my name is Dave Kingsbury. I'm one of the two regional directors for the Northeast Soil Survey region. I'm from Morgantown, West Virginia, and was formerly the regional director for the Soil Survey Region 6 office. And I'm going to be talking today about the initial mapping focus team activities. The overall charge for the initial mapping focus team is to develop a strategy for the successful completion of a soil and ecological inventory on U.S. land not currently covered by an NCSS standard or SURGO soil survey. As you can see, the membership is fairly broad and varied. While most members do come from NRCS, both SPSD and states, we also have members from other federal agencies such as the U.S. Forest Service, Fish and Wildlife Service, BLM. We've also got members from academia and the private sector. We have regular participation from other focus team members, such as those from the Digital Soil Mapping focus team, in some cases the database focus team. We also have federal lands liaisons, Joe Brennan and Tiffany Allen, that join us on a regular basis. The team has 7 individual charges. I'm really only going to be focusing on 3 of those. First is develop, coordinate, and implement the process to have full data coverage by FY 2026, which is SOILS 2026, and assist in the development of new standards to facilitate full coverage by FY 2026, and then assemble existing data. And again, I'm going to be looking at progress towards each of these goals. The centerpiece of SOILS 2026 is to have full soil and ecological coverage for the U.S. So a statement of the problem: the conterminous U.S. or CONUS has about 1.7 billion acres currently mapped, or 90% of the total land area. The remaining unmapped areas total about 117 million acres, or 6% of the land area. So to meet the goals of SOILS 2026, 117 million acres need to be mapped by the end of 2026. For Alaska, the task is even greater, since 69 million acres, or 18% of the total state acreage, has been mapped. That leaves over 300 million acres, or 82%, remaining to be completed. Reliance on higher order or lower resolution mapping products will be even greater than in CONUS. Given the production over the last 8 years, an average production rate of 19.5 million acres per year for CONUS would be required to meet the goals of SOILS 2026. For Alaska, the challenge is even greater and will require nearly 51 million acres mapped per year. It's apparent that dedicating sufficient resources is critical to meeting the goals of SOILS 2026. This includes both staff and development of suitable products. The use of higher order or lower resolution products must be utilized. An early accomplishment by the initial mapping focus team under the leadership of Mike Reagan was the NotCom catalog. For those of you not familiar with the term, NotCom stands for Not Complete and is a map unit symbol that we use in soil survey. We tally up the NotCom acreage to determine the remaining acreage of unmapped lands in the U.S. So the NotCom catalog is a tool for developing initial mapping project plans. It isn't really a product per se. The NotCom catalog was incorporated into the Federal Lands Campaign web map for easy access to catalog entries. All NotCom areas are shown spatially on the web map. The web map shows what data are available for each NotCom area. Each NotCom area can have multiple listings. Using this catalog is the first stop in the planning process when developing project plans for initial mapping. The initial mapping focus team is now starting work on developing a similar catalog for point or PED-ON data. This effort came from a recommendation by team member Jeff Brugink of the U.S. Forest Service. Another development by the initial mapping focus team was the recommendation to utilize multi-order SURGO to help fill in the remainder of NotCom areas. Out of the 3 likely options for completing initial mapping, the use of higher order or lower resolution mapping is the most likely or practical option to get larger areas of NotCom completed. Converting StatsGo, or more appropriately, enhancing StatsGo, is and possibly using digital soil mapping methods to do that is an option that is being proposed and used. The latest development, spearheaded by the Initial Mapping Focus Team, is the development of the Initial Mapping Project Plan Web Map. This provides a spatial display of project plans for all NOTCOM areas. The soil survey regions all contributed to the development of a spreadsheet that feeds this web map. Clicking on any NOTCOM area provides some information, rather limited, but this can be expanded. The tabular display provides important information about the project. Project status, such as planned completion date and acres to be mapped, are also provided. Federal and non-federal land acres provides breakdown acreage by ownership. Soil survey details provide information such as order of mapping, plans for raster soil survey, and soil survey office coordinating the project. The initial project plan web map was what I consider phase 1 of the planning process for SOILS 2026. It was recognized that greater focused planning and preparation would likely be required to meet the very aggressive acceleration of initial mapping. Collaboration between the federal lands liaisons, that's Joe Brennan, Tiffany Allen, and John Andreoni, and the initial mapping focus team lead and supported by Soil and Plant Science Division upper leadership resulted in a proposal to coordinate with and support soil survey regions engaged in initial mapping. Several items were identified in this phase 2 effort. First, project planning on all remaining lands, or NOTCOM, is structured and made available to the federal NCSS partners and ensures 100% completion from beginning of fiscal years 2022 through 2026. Second, implementation of national instructions and standardized project planning to include annual plan of operations and 5- and 10-year or long-range plans. There would also be increased emphasis on partnership transparency on uninitiated projects and standards for accomplishing goals of the initiative. These last two help ensure federal partners are aware of plans for completion of mapping on their respective lands, but also can convey inventory needs for the post-completion era. To accomplish these proposals, working sub-teams under a SOILS 2026 management team were created. These sub-teams consist of initial database and digital soil mapping team leads, relevant technical staff representing the National Soil Survey Center, senior regional soil scientists, and MLRA soil survey office leaders, especially from those regions with the highest amount of initial mapping remaining, federal lands liaisons, and National Cooperative Soil Survey federal partners. The sub-team consists of policy, implementation, and products. Key activities of the sub-teams will result in national instructions for SOILS 2026 being written by the end of fiscal year 21 for implementation beginning in fiscal year 22. These will include product specifications for reconnaissance efforts, standardized levels of investigation, minimum data standard for all aggregated data, requirements for initial mapping project planning for 5-year mid-range work planning, requirements for future project planning to build 10-year long-range plan and beyond, and guidance on working agreements such as MOUs, statements of commitment, and interagency agreements to facilitate cooperation. Additional activities consist of developing and providing training or workshops to facilitate effective work planning efforts, updates to standards in the National Soil Survey Handbook to account for reconnaissance projects developed through the SOILS 2026 efforts, quarterly progress updates to SOILS 2026 steering team and SPSD leadership team, annual progress updates to the regional state soil science group and NCSS federal lands advisory group, and regionally facilitated sessions of the Federal Lands Advisory Group, or FLAG. Other considerations for completing initial mapping. First, SOILS 2026 products must be suitable for conservation planning needs. This doesn't mean that all mapping products can be used to develop conservation plans, but it does mean that areas needing conservation planning will have a product of suitable resolution. Also, projects are emphasized rather than acres. Long-range plans will better address NCSS partners' long-term inventory needs, and the completion of SOILS 2026 initial mapping is not necessarily the long-term product. There is a need for enhanced products, and those should be addressed in the long-range plan. In closing, the goals of SOL's 2026 initiative are aggressive, and sub-teams are meeting frequently in order to have the national instructions completed by the end of fiscal year 21. This effort will require cooperation by all SOL survey regions to mobilize and assist with implementing the many project plans developed by the regions, having the bulk of the initial mapping remaining.